A little boy suddenly burst out of the convenience store parking lot, tears cutting lines through the dirt on his face, his bare feet smacking against the burning asphalt as he sprinted toward us. I remember watching him run straight at our group. 10 Hell's Angels leaning against our bikes, before he grabbed a fistful of the closest leather vest, like a drowning kid grabbing a life preserver. "Please help. My mommy won't wake up. Please, you gotta come," he cried, voice shaking so hard it barely held together. We all traded looks. We'd only pulled over for gas and a couple of cold drinks while passing through some forgotten stretch of Nevada. This definitely wasn't part of the ride plan. But there was something in that kid's eyes, pure panic, the kind that hits you right in the chest, that made every single one of us set our drinks aside and pay attention. None of us knew it yet, but that moment was about to flip our whole day upside down. Before I go on, tell me where you're tuning in from. And if you're the kind of person who believes in standing up for folks who can't stand up for themselves, go ahead and subscribe to Bike Diaries. These stories remind you that real heroes don't always look like the movies say they do. I'm Reaper, and I was the first one who really saw him. The boy looked maybe 7, skinny as a broomstick, drowning in clothes 2 sizes too big, stains all over, and hair sticking up every direction like he'd been running through a storm. And God, he was shaking. Not from the heat, not from being barefoot, but from fear so raw it made my own chest tighten. "Easy, kiddo, slow down," I told him as I knelt. At 58, with a gray beard and eyes that have seen way too much, kneeling takes longer than it used to. But I did it anyway. "Tell me what's going on." "My mommy," his voice cracked. "She's on the floor and she won't wake up. I shook her and she still won't wake up, and my baby sister's crying and I don't know what to do." Bull, our sergeant-at-arms, stepped in. "Where's your house, son?" The kid pointed toward a dusty dirt road breaking off from the highway into the desert scrub. "That way, it's not far. Please, we gotta hurry." Snake checked his watch. We were already running late for a memorial ride 2 counties over. A veteran's funeral. Someone we all knew. Someone who mattered. But Snake's eyes landed on the boy's bleeding, blistered feet. And that was the end of the debate. "How far?" Wrench asked. 5 minutes if we run," the kid answered, tugging hard on my vest. "But I can't carry Mommy, she's too heavy, and Emma won't stop crying. She's only 3, she doesn't understand." I looked around at my brothers. Tank, a mountain of a man with fists like wrecking balls. Ghost, silent as death. Hammer, our former combat medic from Afghanistan. Diesel, Crow, Viper, Chains, every one of them carved out of hard years, long roads, mistakes survived and paid for. They all gave the same nod. "Hop on," I told the boy, lifting him onto my bike. "What's your name?" "Tyler." "All right, Tyler, hold on tight, show us where to go." We fired up the engines, and the roar echoed across the empty desert. Tyler pointed the way, and I steered us down the dirt road with the rest rolling behind me in formation. The Nevada desert stretched out harsh and unforgiving. Cactus, rocks, and that wavering heat haze that makes the world look like it's underwater. After maybe 3 minutes, something appeared ahead. A battered old mobile home, rusted, dented, sitting alone in the middle of absolute nowhere. No neighbors, no shade, no sign of life at all. Just a crooked door barely hanging on. We cut the engines. The sudden silence felt wrong. No hum of AC, no movement. Just heat pressing down on everything. Tyler scrambled off the bike and sprinted to the door. "Mommy, I brought help. Please wake up." We followed him inside, and the smell hit instantly. Spoiled food, dirty diapers, desperation soaked into the walls. It was dim inside, curtains blocking out the sun. Trash overflowed from a cracked bin. Dishes were stacked in a dry sink where the water hadn't run in God knows how long. On the floor lay a woman in her late 20s, thin, waxy-skinned, breathing so shallow I had to stare just to make sure she still was. Next to her sat a toddler on a stained blanket. Her diaper sagged. Her face was blotchy from hours of crying. And when she saw us, a pack of leather-clad strangers, she wailed louder, "Emma, it's okay!" Tyler rushed to her and scooped her up like he'd done it 1,000 times. "They're here to help." Hammer was already at the woman's side, fingers pressed to her neck, assessing. Pulse is weak, breathing's barely there, she's severely dehydrated. He looked up at me. "We need an ambulance right now." Diesel pulled out his phone. "No signal," he muttered. "Of course," Ghost said, scanning the paper-thin walls and the cardboard-covered window. The AC unit sat dead in the corner, turning the whole trailer into an oven. Tank searched the other rooms. When he returned, his face looked even heavier than usual. No food, cabinets empty, fridge dead, bathroom sinks dry. Looks like they cut the water off. I stood, fists tightening. Tyler rocked Emma, trying to quiet her sobs. I crouched beside him. "Tyler, when did your mama stop waking up?" "This morning," he whispered. "She said she was tired and needed to lie down, but then she didn't get up. I tried at lunchtime, but she wouldn't wake up." Tears spilled down his cheeks. "Is she dead? Please don't let her be dead." "She's not," Hammer said firmly. "But she's real sick. When did she eat last?" Tyler swallowed hard. "I don't know. Maybe yesterday. She gave me and Emma the last can of soup 2 days ago. She said she wasn't hungry." We all exchanged a look. This wasn't neglect. This was a mother starving herself so her kids could eat. "Where's your father?" Bull asked gently. Tyler's little face hardened in a way no 7-year-olds should. "Gone. He left last month. Said he couldn't do this anymore. Said we were too much trouble." Snake's jaw flexed with the kind of anger only grown men understand. He'd seen a lot in 46 years, done plenty he regretted, but walking out on your kids, that hit a different level. "We need to get her to a hospital," Hammer said quietly. "She needs fluids, medical care, everything. She could already be slipping into organ failure." I nodded and made the call. "Diesel, Crow, get back to the highway, find signal, call 911. Tell them we need an ambulance here." I looked at Tyler. "What's your address, son?" He rattled off a route number and mile marker. Diesel and Crow bolted out the door. "The rest of us search the place," I said. "I want to know exactly what we're dealing with." What they found made Bull clench his fists. Tyler's room was barely a closet. A bare mattress on the floor, no sheets, just a thin blanket covered in marker drawings. Little stick figures of a mom, a boy, and a girl. No father. In one drawing, the dad had been scribbled out with thick black strokes. Emma's room held a broken crib and a mountain of dirty diapers. No clean ones, no wipes, no formula. In the mother's room, we found a stack of overdue bills, final notices for power, water, rent, and at the very bottom, a letter from the father dated 3 weeks earlier. "I can't do this anymore. You're on your own." That was the last line in the letter. Tank held it between 2 fingers, his jaw tightening so hard I thought his teeth might crack. "That son of a... Not here." Ghost cut in softly, glancing at Tyler standing in the doorway with little Emma still perched on his hip. "Not in front of the kid." I walked over to Tyler and knelt. "How long's it been like this, buddy? No water, no food, nothing." He shrugged, but it wasn't the kind of shrug a kid gives. It was flat, mechanical. "Water stopped last week. Power went off 2 weeks ago. Daddy left 3 weeks ago. He didn't even blink. Just listed the facts like he'd memorized them. Mommy said he'd come back. She said he'd bring money. She said things would get better. He swallowed hard, but he didn't. "What have you been eating?" I asked. "Whatever was left," he said quietly. "Some crackers, a little peanut butter. I gave most of it to Emma because she's small." His eyes drifted to his mother, lying unconscious on the floor. She kept saying she'd figure everything out. She said she'd find money. But then she got real tired, and I didn't know what to do anymore. So I ran to find help. Hammer was back at Jennifer's side, shifting her so she could breathe easier. "Tyler," he said gently, "listen to me. You did everything right. You hear me? You saved your mama's life today. If you hadn't come for help, she might not have made it." That was when Tyler finally broke. Not the panicked tears from earlier. This time, it was the heavy, exhausted crying of a kid who'd been holding the entire world on his shoulders for way too long. I pulled him close. This small stranger who'd run to us with nothing left but hope. "We've got you now, son. You, Emma, and your mama. We're not going anywhere." If this story hits you, hit that subscribe button for Bike Diaries. It helps us keep telling the kind of stories that remind folks what real heroes look like. It took 45 minutes for that ambulance to get out to the desert. In that time, we did everything we could. Viper handed Jennifer tiny sips of water, careful not to overwhelm her. Chains took off down the highway, found a convenience store 15 miles away, and came back with diapers, formula, bread, lunch meat, the works. Tyler ate like someone who hadn't seen a real meal in days, because he hadn't. Emma sucked down her bottle and passed out right in Tank's massive arms. First time that little girl felt safe enough to sleep. When the paramedics finally arrived, they confirmed what we already suspected: severe dehydration, malnutrition, maybe even organ damage. They lifted Jennifer onto the stretcher. "The kids will have to go with protective services," one of them said. "No!" Tyler screamed, sprinting toward the stretcher. "You promised we stay together." I caught him before he collided with the paramedic. "Hey, easy, kiddo. Nobody's tearing you apart." But he said, "I know what he said," I told him. Then I looked the paramedic dead in the eye. "These kids have family. They're with us." The guy looked us over, all 10 of us in leather, patches glinting in the sun, and raised an eyebrow. "Are you relatives?" "We're their family now," Bull said flatly. "That's all that matters." "That's not how this works," the paramedic started. "Child Services needs..." Ghost stepped in. "Call whoever you want, but these kids aren't going anywhere until their mother wakes up. Non-negotiable." The paramedics exchanged looks. One of them shrugged like he'd seen too much weird stuff to argue. "Your problem. Someone will come check." As they loaded Jennifer into the ambulance, Tyler climbed up into the back and sat beside her, clutching her arm. "I'm coming too," I said. The paramedic opened his mouth to object, but I cut him off. "He's coming." Then I turned to Snake. "Ride with them. Don't let that boy out of your sight." Snake climbed in without another word, arms crossed like a wall, daring anyone to challenge him. The medics didn't even bother arguing. Once they pulled away, the rest of us stood in the scorching desert, staring at that battered trailer, the place that had been these kids' whole world. "So," Diesel said, hands on his hips, "what now?" I looked at the trailer door hanging off its hinges, the eviction notice fluttering against the metal, the pure emptiness of the whole situation. "Now," I said, "we fix this." And that's exactly what we did. For the next 3 hours, we called in every favor we were owed. Wrench had an electrician buddy who still owed him money from a deal years back. He made the call, and the guy agreed to come turn the power back on. Hammer reached out to the veterans organization he volunteered with. They paid the overdue water bill. Crow had connections in property management. The landlord agreed to work out a payment arrangement if someone guaranteed things wouldn't fall apart again. Crow guaranteed it. By sunset, that rundown trailer had working electricity and running water. Tank and Bull stocked the place with actual groceries. Not just survival food, real food. Viper and Chains started scrubbing the place top to bottom, turning it from a disaster zone into something livable. Ghost sat outside on guard. Something was eating at him. He kept saying a father doesn't just disappear like that unless something else is going on, and if anyone knows when something feels wrong, it's a man who learned survival instincts in prison. Meanwhile, Snake kept texting updates from the hospital. The mother's name was Jennifer. She woke up for a few moments, just long enough to cry when she saw Tyler and to ask where Emma was. The doctors said she'd live, but she'd need at least 3 days in the hospital. Tyler refused to leave her side. Staff tried to move him, but Snake stood behind him like a brick wall, arms folded, basically daring anyone to try. That night, back at the trailer, we held an emergency meeting. Emma slept in a brand new crib we'd bought and assembled. Tyler stayed at the hospital with Snake. The rest of us sat around mismatched furniture drinking lukewarm beer, trying to figure out the next step. We can't just walk away from them, Viper said. Jennifer's going to be in the hospital for days. Someone's got to watch Emma. And someone's got to stay with Tyler, Hammer added. That kid's been through hell. He needs stability. We've got the memorial ride tomorrow, Diesel reminded us. Already missed half of it today. Silence settled over the room. The memorial mattered. A brother from another chapter had passed, and we promised we'd be there. But so did this family. I stood. Here's the plan. Half of us go to the memorial and represent the club. The other half stay here. We'll rotate. Nobody leaves this family alone until they're safe. For how long? Chains asked. As long as it takes. Bull nodded. I'm in. One by one, everyone else agreed. Tank volunteered to watch Emma first. Hammer said he'd coordinate with the doctors. Ghost promised to track down the father. Over the next 3 days, we went from a biker club on a ride to a makeshift family unit. We learned to change diapers, warm bottles, read bedtime stories. Tank, the guy who scared grown men, became Emma's favorite. She called him Big Bear and refused to be held by anyone else. Tyler took longer. He was polite but distant, always watching us like he was waiting for the moment we'd leave him behind, because that's what every adult in his life had done. I spent hours at the hospital just sitting with him. Not talking, not pushing, just being there. On day 3, Jennifer was finally strong enough to speak. I sat beside her bed while Tyler slept, curled in a chair. "Why are you doing this?" she asked, voice tired but steady. "You don't even know us." "Your son asked for help," I said. "That's enough." "I can't pay you," she whispered. "I have nothing. I didn't ask you to." Her eyes filled with tears. "I tried. I swear I tried. After Marcus left, I looked for work, but no one hires someone with no phone, no address, no references. I applied for government help, but it takes weeks. I kept telling Tyler we'd be okay, but..." Her voice cracked. I was lying. I didn't know what to do. "You kept your kids alive," I told her. "You gave them food you didn't eat yourself. Tyler told me you starved so they wouldn't." "I failed them," she whispered. "No," I said, shaking my head. "Their father failed them. The system failed them. You fought until you couldn't fight anymore. Now, let us help carry it." She looked at her son, sleeping peacefully for the first time in who knows how long. What happens when you leave, when you go back to your lives? We'll end up right back here. Then we make damn sure that doesn't happen. Would you have stopped to help? Would you have stayed? Tell us in the comments. Your voice matters. On day 4, the social worker showed up. Patricia Santos, late 50s, tired eyes that I've seen everything kind of energy. She stepped into the trailer to find 6 Hells Angels cooking breakfast, Emma giggling on Tank's shoulders, and Tyler, finally home from the hospital, doing homework at a table we'd built from scratch 2 days earlier. "This is highly irregular," Patricia said, already scribbling notes. "Life's irregular," Bull replied, flipping a pancake. "You want breakfast?" She declined. Patricia didn't take the pancakes. Instead, she spent her time talking to Jennifer. By then, Jennifer had been discharged from the hospital with strict orders: rest, real food, and no stress if she could help it. Of course, that last part was a joke. Her whole life was stress. Patricia sat across from her with that clipboard in her lap and started asking all the hard questions about the kid's father, about how long things had been bad, about money, about what the future was supposed to look like. "I don't know," Jennifer finally admitted, tears running down her cheeks. "I don't have a plan. I don't have anything. But these men, they've been helping us. They brought food, they paid the bills, they took care of my kids. And they're bikers," Patricia cut in. "Members of a motorcycle club. You understand what that usually means?" "Yeah," Jennifer said softly. "It means they were there when nobody else was." Tyler looked up from his homework at the table. "When Daddy left and Mommy got sick and I was scared, they came," he said, "and they stayed." Patricia's eyes slid over to him. She took in his clean clothes, the food in front of him, the way he leaned instinctively closer to his mom, almost like he was guarding her. "Tyler," she asked, "has anyone here hurt you? Made you feel scared or uncomfortable?" "No," he shot back immediately, eyes blazing. "They're good people. Better than the people who were supposed to help us." Patricia spent the next 2 hours going through everything with a fine-tooth comb. She opened the fridge, tested the water, flipped light switches to check the power. She interviewed each one of us one by one, tapping away on her tablet while it pulled up our records. Finally, she came outside and sat with me on the steps. "3 of you have criminal histories," she said. "Assault, drugs, 1 weapons charge. All in the rear view," I told her. "We did our time, we changed, we're not those guys anymore. The system doesn't like trusting bikers with vulnerable kids," she said. "The system didn't show up when those kids were starving," I replied. "We did." She didn't answer right away, just stared through the window at the scene inside. Emma giggling while Tyler did his homework with Hammer's help, Jennifer slowly eating the soup Viper had made like it was the first real meal she'd had in weeks. "I should remove the children," Patricia said at last. "That's standard. Mother was unconscious. The home was unsafe. Father abandoned them. On paper, I'm supposed to take them." "But are you going to?" I asked. She let out a breath. "If I move them now, they'll be split. Different foster homes. Tyler will probably run. Kids his age almost always do. Emma will be traumatized. Jennifer will lose them and may never get them back." She went quiet again, thinking. "Or," she said slowly, "I can grant provisional approval. 30 days. I come back every week. Any sign of danger, neglect, or something inappropriate, and they're removed immediately. No second chances. Is that clear?" "Crystal," I told her. "We understand." She stood and gathered her things. "Don't make me regret this. Those kids have already survived more than most adults. When she left, Jennifer just crumpled. Not from fear this time, from relief so strong it nearly broke her. Tyler wrapped his arms around her, then ran straight to me, then Bull, then the others, hugging each of us like he never wanted to let go. "You're staying?" he kept asking. "You're really staying?" "We're staying," I told him. "Count on it." What Tyler didn't know yet was that Ghost had already been busy in his own way. He'd dug into Marcus, the father who walked out, followed traces, pulled strings, used contacts I didn't ask too many questions about. Turned out Marcus was holed up in Las Vegas living in a decent apartment, earning a decent paycheck, spending it all on himself while his kids went hungry in the desert. Ghost made a call to a friend in our Vegas chapter. "Got a guy who needs a visit," he told him. 2 days later, Marcus walked into a police station and signed away his parental rights. No lawyer, no fight, just a broken nose, 2 black eyes, and a sudden burning need to never be responsible for those kids again. Nobody asked questions. Nobody cared. Those first 30 days turned into 60, then 90. We set up a schedule so Jennifer and the kids were never alone. We helped her land a job at a local diner where Crow's cousin managed the place. Tyler got enrolled properly in school and showed up with new supplies we'd all chipped in to buy. The guys helped him with homework at the kitchen table. Emma turned 4 and had a birthday party bigger than anything she'd ever seen. Cake, balloons, presents. Chains even made her a tiny custom leather vest with her name stitched on the back. Emma latched onto Tank like he was her personal superhero. She called him Big Bear and refused to fall asleep unless he'd hugged her goodnight. Tyler, though, took longer to thaw. He was always polite, always careful, but he watched us like we were on a timer. Like any day now, we'd disappear and prove that adults always leave. I spent a lot of time just sitting with him at the hospital or out on the porch. Not pushing, not asking for anything. Just being there. About 6 months in, Jennifer was strong enough for Patricia to consider the case closed. Patricia found me outside again. "You beat the system," she told me. "Most people don't." "We didn't beat anything," I said. "We just showed up and kept showing up." A year after that day in the desert, we organized our biggest charity ride yet, 200 bikes from several chapters, all raising money for families in crisis. At the front of the line, I rode with Tyler sitting in front of me, wearing his own helmet and grinning like somebody who'd just been handed his whole future back. Right behind us rumbled Tank, with Emma strapped safely into a special seat, her little hands up in the air as she screamed with pure joy. Jennifer watched from the starting line. Healthy now, stronger now, tears in her eyes but a smile on her face. Not the broken crying from before. This was gratitude. The ride ended exactly where this all began, at the trailer. Only by then, it wasn't just a trailer. We'd painted it, repaired it, fixed what we could. It looked like a real home now. A banner hung over the front door. "Welcome home." Tyler bolted to Jennifer and squeezed her like he never wanted to let go. "This is the best day ever," he said, voice shaking with happiness. Jennifer looked around at us, these rough men with scars, ink, and battered pasts, standing around her family like a wall. "Thank you," she whispered. "For everything. Thank us by living," I told her. "By being happy. By teaching your kids that when they're scared and feel alone, there are still good people in this world. That's all we want." If this story reminded you that heroes don't always look the way you expect, subscribe to Bike Diaries, share this video, and tell somebody today that kindness still exists. 5 years later, Tyler stood on a middle school stage in a cap and gown, giving a speech about overcoming hard times. He talked about the day his dad walked out, about his mom getting sick, about being 7 years old and scared out of his mind. Then he told the story of running into that parking lot and grabbing my vest. 10 strangers who turned into family. Heroes don't always look like superheroes, he said. Sometimes they look scary. Sometimes they've got tattoos and ride loud motorcycles and have pasts they're not proud of. But they're heroes because when a kid asked for help, they said yes. And then they kept saying yes every day after. In the very back row, 10 Hell's Angels sat in their cleanest clothes, still unmistakably bikers. A couple of the guys wiped at their eyes. No one mentioned it. After the ceremony, Emma, now 8, ran straight to Tank and wrapped herself around him. "When I grow up," she said, "I'm going to ride motorcycles and help people just like you." Tank, this huge man with a record and more ghosts than he'd ever admit, knelt down and told her quietly, "Then that's exactly what you'll do, and we'll teach you." Jennifer stood next to me, watching her kids laugh with the guys. "I never said it enough," she murmured. "Thank you. For that day. For every day after." "You've said it plenty," I replied. "But if you really want to thank us, there's one more thing." "Anything," she said. "We're starting a foundation, helping families before they fall all the way apart. We need someone who understands what it feels like on the inside, someone who survived it." Her eyes went wide. "You want me to—" "We want you to help us help them," I said. "Pay it forward." She nodded, unable to get the words out. 3 months later, Tyler's Hope was born. In its first year, that little foundation kept 40 families from collapsing. Emergency food, help with rent, job placement, counseling. All the things Jennifer and her kids needed but never found. Until 10 bikers answered a cry for help. 10 years after that day in the desert, Tyler stood beside me as a Hell's Angels prospect. 21 years old, patch in his hands. Not because of blood ties, but because of who he'd chosen to be. I watched him slip on that vest and thought of the terrified kid who once grabbed my jacket and begged for help. "Proud of you, kid," I told him quietly. "Learned from the best," he said. Emma was a teenager by then, volunteering with the Tyler's Hope and planning to study social work. She still pulled out that tiny leather vest sometimes, the one that said Honorary Hell's Angel, to remind herself where she'd started and who had her back. Jennifer remarried eventually. Good man. Worked with the foundation. Understood trauma, didn't try to replace us, just joined the circle. The old mobile home was gone, replaced by a modest house the foundation helped them get. But she kept one thing from those hardest days, the blanket drawing Tyler made. A stick figure mom, a boy, a little girl. Over the years, she'd added 10 more stick figures on motorcycles surrounding them, forming a ring of protection. Every year, on the anniversary of that day, we roll up to Jennifer's place. We eat, we laugh, we tell the story again. The day a scared little boy ran out of the desert, grabbed a stranger's vest, and changed all of our lives. Sometimes the people who save you aren't the ones you're warned to trust. Sometimes they're the ones you're warned to avoid. Sometimes they're outlaws on motorcycles who hear a kid say, "My mommy won't wake up," and decide that today, right now, they're going to be the good guys. And sometimes the people you pull out of the fire, they're the ones who end up saving you. Thanks for listening. Be brave. Be kind. Be the person who stops when someone needs help. You never know when saying yes to a stranger will change both your lives forever. Subscribe to Bike Diaries. Share this story. And remember, family isn't always blood. Sometimes it's 10 bikers who showed up when no one else did and never left.